Hey, welcome back to my channel here at that Kilted Guide DIY home improvement videos. In part 1 and 2 of this series on how to repair a water damaged ceiling, I showed you how to prep the surface, scrape, and get everything ready for taping. Then I showed you how to tape it, coat it, sand it, and get it ready for texture. Now in part 3, I'm going to show you how you can do a knockdown texture with just a $2 sponge, even on a large area, and it came out great. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel here at that Kilted Guy videos. And if you're into doing your own home improvement projects such as drywall repairs and other things, and you want to learn how to do it right, be sure and click on that subscribe button wherever it appears down there below the video. And if you want to be notified each time a video comes out, click on that little bell icon. That way YouTube will notify you each time we put a video out. Because if you don't click the bell icon, you actually don't get notified. You're just subscribed to us. Again, welcome to my channel. My name is Guy Priscilla. I am a 35-year professional in the construction industry, having owned my own business of Mr. Patch Drywall for the last 15 years. I've specialized in repairing drywall, so I've done thousands of repairs like this. And after 35 years, it's my goal to pass on my knowledge to you guys so that you guys can do some of this. I know you're going to try it, so you might as well get the right instruction and learn how to do it right. So in today's video, what we have is simple common water damage. So I'm going to walk you through some of the things to look for, how to repair it, and we're going to do this with really simple, inexpensive tools, and I'll list all those in the description down below with links to them. You won't need an air compressor or anything. This is considered a knockdown texture, which means that it's sprayed on and then you come back and knock it down with a trowel. Now I'm going to show you how to do this without that compressor and hopper. And actually we showed you that in part 1 and 2, so now we're going to move on to how to do the texture. Hey, I just did a drywall repair on the ceiling up above me, and it's pretty good size. Now I've got to do a knockdown texture. If you want to know how to do a knockdown texture matching, but you don't want to have to own a compressor and a sprayer and all that, I'm going to show you how to do it with this right here, an ordinary sponge. I've modified it a bit. And today what I want to pass on to you is a little trick on how to match a knockdown texture the simple way. Now I'm going to show you how to do a match with a sponge, I hope. Because honestly, I've used this sponge to match small areas. I would never, truthfully, I'd never go into a customer's home and match anything this big with this sponge, only because I'm not sure I can get it to look as good as I want. I like my repairs to come out looking like nothing ever happened, and I can do that with a texture sprayer. So I have another video about how to spray a knockdown texture. If you want to watch that method too, I'll put a link. There'll be a little thumbnail that'll pop up at the end, and maybe there's a card popping up right now that says an eye on it. And I'll try and put a link in the description down below, because you might want to compare both these methods. I personally think it's a lot better to spray it, but the truth is, this is a rental. We're doing this repair for free. So I figure I'm going to do a little experiment today. If it doesn't come out the greatest, then she's still going to appreciate it because I'm not charging her a dime. But if it were a customer's home or my home, I would go ahead and spray it. But the difference is we would then have to mask off all this room, because with one of those texture sprayers, if I point it in that direction, I can spray something 20 feet away. It flies forever, so you got to cover everything. The advantage to this is no expense of those tools, and you don't have to do all that masking. So you can buy one of these texture sponges if you want on Amazon. I'll put that link in the description down below, but I think they're close to $20. I made this one for under $2. If you want to know how to do that, I'll put that video at the end also, and the description down below. So be sure and open that description up. I try and put a lot of helpful information down there. But in a short nutshell, I just took an ordinary cheap sponge and pulled chunks out of it with a pair of pliers till I got a look that would simulate the right kind of pattern that we're going to put on the ceiling to give us a knockdown texture. Now, one disadvantage to this is knockdown texture can come in many forms. Here's some samples I made up for my customers. Here's a light knockdown, a medium knockdown, and a heavy knockdown. And this sponge really isn't going to do that as well because it's a fixed shape we made here. But by varying how we put it on, we should be able to get something similar. This texture we've got, I'll show you a picture of it here. It's a pretty heavy knockdown texture. So that means we're going to want to put on quite a bit of mud as far as coverage, not really so much depth, and cover a lot, and then we knock it down and smooth it out. There's a few things to be concerned about here though, and I'll point those out as I go. But first off, what do you use for texture? Well, you can use any old drywall mud, pretty much whatever you've got on hand. Just I wouldn't use a hot mud, a fast setting joint compound, but any all-purpose topping mud, it'll work just fine. What you do is you take it and you thin it down to where it's much thinner than you would use by hand. So let me show you a little comparison here. Here's what I would call ordinary hand mud. This is slightly thinned down. It's not straight out of the box, but you can see it's not runny. You can get a load on your knife, turn it upside down. It doesn't just immediately fall off, but it is thinned down a little bit. Now let's compare. This is the mud I thinned down for texture, and I just put it in this shoe box because my sponge won't fit in the pan, but it will fit in here, so this ought to work. So if I get a knife full of this, you can see it's much more runny. Everybody likes to use the term pancake batter, so I guess that would make some medium thick pancakes. So here's one more example. If I turn it up, you can see it runs off here pretty good. How much water it takes, I really can't tell you that because it varies. Sometimes it comes right out of the box much thinner, other times heavier, so you got to use your visual and your knowledge and just keep thinning it down. If you're just doing a small area to thin it down, you could just put it in your pan, add some water in here and just stir it right in the pan, and then pour it into this container here to do the texture. Or you can get an egg beater, chuck it up in your cordless drill, mix it up in here, and boy, that works wonders. I did a video on that too. I use that to mix up my powdered hot mud a lot. Okay, here's the area that we're repairing. It's a pretty good sized area. It is roughly 2 feet across this way and about 5 feet long. And that's a pretty good sized area to do with this. If you look around on the edge of the texture, a lot of times it'll change. It may get a lot lighter texture in one area, and if it does, I like to try and match it that way. So you might want to kind of observe as you go and put it on a little bit differently. But all we're going to do is load this sponge up. So we've got quite a bit of mud on here, but I didn't just totally pack it in there. Mainly I want it on the peaks, and you just start tapping it to the surface. Now, I like to put it on fairly evenly, although the pattern in here varies. I still don't want my texture to be too just really random everywhere unless it really needs it to match the rest of the texture in the house. But now you might ask, could you roll this on and stomp this into that? You know, that just hit me, and I honestly don't know. Has anybody out there ever tried that? Maybe one of you need to go try that for me and tell me how it comes out. I would think you would actually get quite a bit different pattern than what we're doing here. So you can see we want to have some fairly decent sized texture pieces hanging down, or we won't get that good knockdown. Now around the edges, I would highly recommend to try and stay on the raw drywall mud as much as possible. Once you get over to here, because we have to let this set up before we can knock it down, it will suck the moisture out really fast right here compared to on the paint side. Over here it might take 4 times as long or more, and what that'll do is it'll cause you to smear it. So when you knock it down, you get over to here, it hasn't sucked enough of the moisture out, you'll get a smeary band all around the edge. So just, that's one advantage to the sponge, we can be fairly precise with it. Now, like right in here, it looks like I've got some mud, but there's no depth to it. We need some depth like some of these. That's a little too heavy. But if it's too heavy like that, we can just work it some more and see it pull some more off, moves it around. So you can adjust it as you go. Okay, here's one little tip. You might want to focus on moving kind of across the texture, because again, we're letting this set up a little bit. So if we got it setting up faster over here and over here, but slower in the middle because we went in this pattern, it might knock down a little bit funny. Hey, if any of you out there do this method a lot, let me know what your thoughts are. Am I doing anything different than you do? Because this is not my favorite way. I would much rather spray something this size, but we're going to give it a shot. See, part of the problem I would see with doing something this big with a sponge is that setup time. We need it to set up, but by going so slowly here, we're going to have it setting up way sooner over there than this last part that we're doing, which is, I think, going to make it hard to get an even setup time and knockdown out of it. Okay, now you can see kind of what that looks like in this picture. I'm guessing here, again, this is not my expertise, but let's see how it looks. So when you think it's set up a little bit, you can get on it sooner with this plastic knife. So we're going to just do a little tiny test spot and see how it's looking. And if it's looking good like that, let's keep going. Okay, I gotta say, I am impressed. That came out better than I thought it would. I might have to try this again in the future on a maybe not quite so big a one, but this actually looks pretty close to the real knockdown texture. Now I got another tip or two before you go. So here's the first tip. When this dries, sometimes this edge along here, it still gives it away because it's too defined. So I'm using a mud called USG Plus 3. It's really soft when it dries. So what I do is after it's dried, just go around and rub it lightly, just about that quick, all the way around that edge. That thins that edge out more than we can do by knocking it down. Blends it into the previous texture even better. Okay, I'm going to show you a small spot that I didn't do that on. I didn't feather it right, and you'll see how it stands out. Okay, on the top is the old texture, on the bottom is my texture, and you see how it just kind of stands out right there. That's because I didn't feather it in. And you can see in this example, it just really gives away the repair edge. And it'll just make it blend in and go away better. Now the next tip is how to paint it, because a lot of people paint these wrong, and I will tell you I did. I'm ashamed to say this, I did dozens of them wrong in my early days, because I would often get asked to go ahead and paint it after I did these. So I did, but I tell you what, I decided to do a separate video and show you how to paint it right, so be looking for that coming out soon. But for those of you that watch this, I'm going to put some videos in popping up right there and one right there. Those are some other videos you might find helpful. And if you enjoy learning this kind of stuff, be sure and subscribe and click the bell icon, because we're going to put this stuff out regularly to teach you how to do it right. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.